Yeah, guys and everybody. So today we are talking about disappointments and why it happens. Because unconsciously, I think most of us are groomed, even from childhood. You know, when a baby cries, it's either it wants breast milk or it saw him or herself and needs to be changed, or a child just wants to be comforted into a cozy relaxation and all that. And if we are not weighing of these expectations properly, it grows into adulthood and some fixations for certain situations, people, and the environment, so that if we don't get what we are expecting of people and situations, then we are disappointed, we are hurt, we are beginning to use all sorts of negative reactions towards people without sometimes considering what the people, whoever we are expecting from, may even have gone through to also get them groomed to be wherever they are. And let's take for instance a relationship, even between mother and child. I mean, every mother loves a child and things can happen, and people just lose it. Me, for instance, I lost my second child, and as at that point, I was so fixated on the errors of the clinic and the staff of those agencies that I didn't even take into consideration what risks me myself I may have put myself into to have gotten me to that point of losing the baby. Because in as much as I lost the baby at that point, there are others who came after me, even before me and after, who had their baby successfully. And why me? And I remember at that point I was so hurt and broken that I just focused on that, and whoever I narrated my story also to, just focus on their pain I was going through, and probably to comfort me, side with me as like, oh, the hospital is wicked, the staff is this, that. I'm not trying to say that for whatever thing that happened in life we should equally blame ourselves, but sometimes I think we just rush to conclusions for situations concerning other people, institutions and all that, without taking into consideration that one way or the other we are all contributing to whatever is going on around us. I recently watched a documentary where in a country for more than 50 years they've not seen crime. They don't use money on the island. It's like everybody is living peacefully because everybody is contributing. But in any situation where somebody should rise up and try to do otherwise, I feel the safety of this island is compromised, and eventually everything changes. And so we grow up and we are so disappointed in people, and I feel sometimes the disappointment we have in people also has to do with the way we ourselves have been brought up. I grew up a Christian, and I grew up with the thought that anybody who lived otherwise than what the church was teaching me was a sinner, is condemned to hell. For instance, I had issue with people who had dreadlocks. I had issue with people who had piercings, people who had like tattoos and all those things. Yes, still secretly, innately, it was something I admired. I'm like, wow, these people look different. I feel I could also be a bit different. That's because of that unconscious programming. Outwardly, I was hating them. And I feel even for some of us conscious people who claim we are conscious, including me, that desires to see people liberated, people freed, we still carry some of these unconscious expectations to the extent that we even hate on people we are expecting to be free. And until we can totally be conscious and as accepting of everybody, no matter the kind of lifestyle you choose to live, I feel our consciousness is not to the maximum. For instance, most conscious people will say lesbianism and gay. And sometimes when you speak for things, people assume secretly it's something you are doing. That's why you just want to get acceptance out there. So when you start doing yours, it doesn't become new. But the point is, when it came to the issue of Rastafarians and all that, I know so many people who are not Rastafarians. They don't have locks. Some even have bald hair, and they are all speaking for it. The point is, you don't even have locks. Why should you speak for somebody that have locks? So the fact that somebody is speaking for the rights of everybody doesn't necessarily mean they are passing something. At the end of the day, Why should you hate on people just because they've chosen a lifestyle that's different from you, for as long as it's not hurting you, and one thing I've learned about this consciousness and awakening and all that is not meant to tie people down to what we ascribe or hold valuable to ourselves. When it comes to libation, there are conscious people who pour libation. There are some who don't. When it comes to food offering, there are people who honor their ancestors. They have altars and all that. There are people who feel we are in a new age and we don't need to be honoring our ancestors with food and all those, in their words, archaic form of honoring ancestors and all that. What do you do about that? I feel this consciousness and awakening is more about freedom. It's about you identifying who you are, who you vibe with, and choosing to move with that vibe instead of worrying about all of society. Because as far as I'm concerned, Martin Luther King tried it. Eventually, what did he gain? He died. Do you want to be a martyr? Then probably you should set on the streets, and search for whatever you believe in. If you die, you die. Malcolm X tried. Who else? We mention names like Dr. Sebe. So many people have tried. For me, this consciousness is all about balance. There are times you would fight hard and it may work out. There are times you don't even need to fight at all because you don't even have the apparatus it takes to fight. There are times you just have to be within the balance and flow with what works for you. What doesn't work for you, just leave it to go. For me, it's about being in the balance now, because after all, we fought against Christianity for so many years, but have we gathered enough courage to go to one church and go like, we are fighting against Christianity, so we are closing your church? No, that's not the essence of our awakening. Our essence is just to preach the message. If people accept it, fine. If they don't accept it, we leave it to the future, that whoever comes in the future, maybe that's who our message will be meant for, and then the person can wake up with it. But taking the strong stance in this 21st century, then probably somebody will also judge your life and go like, you don't even deserve to be talking about this whole awakening movement. So my best advice, everybody should stay in the balance. If you vibe with somebody who's working for you, move on. If it doesn't work for you, just cut the person off. Work with whoever works with you. I always say this, Africa can never be one. If it were so in the beginning, colonial masters wouldn't even have been able to get hold of us. But we've always been a divided race, a divided people. By our language, our practices and all that, we are already divided. The most important thing, respecting people for whatever they choose to ascribe to. And then nobody would have an issue with anybody. But you want to take very strong stance, we're always going to fight. We're always going to argue. We're always going to be against each other. Then where do we get to with this whole awakening thing? Well, I just wish everyone the best on whatever path they have chosen. Okay, peace.